The Battle of Falaise Pocket brought the battle for Normandy to a dramatic and destructive close and destroyed a large number of German APCs. On the 7th of August 1944, the German army had launched a desperate counterattack against the flank of the US forces pushing out of Normandy. The Germans had assembled as many of their precious panzers as they could and pushed west in Operation Lüttich. The attack ground to halt at Morton. Allied air attacks and stubborn resistance from the US ground troops had proved too much for the depleted German forces. The result of this failed offensive was that the German 7th Army ended the offensive dangerously overextended with very little reserves. The Allied ground commanders, US General Omar Bradley and British General Bernard Montgomery, soon saw the predicament of the Germans had placed themselves in and acted to take advantage. Patton's newly formed US 3rd Army was sent east towards Argentan to cut off the German escape south. The British 2nd Army and the Canadian 1st Army pushed southeast, and Bradley's US 1st Army pushed east. The combined pressure of the four Allied armies squeezed and funneled the withdrawing Germans towards the east and Falaise. Montgomery's initial plan called for the 1st Canadian Army to move through Falaise and link up with the US 3rd Army moving north from Argentan. The plan was revised when it was seen that the Germans had some chance of escaping the trap, so the cutoff point was moved 11 miles east to the gap. From the south, the French 2nd Armored Division, who had taken Le Mans on the 9th of August, led the US 3rd Army's thrust. The French division under General Leclerc led the US 11th Corps north on the 10th of August, taking Alencon on the 12th of August and finally Argentan on the 14th. The thrust was brought to halt for a day while the army boundary lines were modified northwards. On the 19th of August, the 90th Infantry Division took Chambord, meeting with the Canadian troops. In the north, the 1st Canadian Army launched Operation Totalize on the 9th of August. The initial assault was successful, but progress slowed as stiff resistance was put up by the likes of the 12th SS Panzer Division. The Canadian 2nd Infantry Division met strong resistance in the woods to the north of Falaise, and after hard fighting, they were finally able to take Falaise on the 17th of August. Inside the pocket, the German generals had realized as early as the 10th of August that time was short and they must withdraw east to avoid encirclement. However, as always, Hitler was still insisting on further counterattacks in the west of Normandy. On the 15th of August, Hitler replaced Generalfeldmarschall Günther von Kluge, and then, only a few days later, finally he allowed the German forces to withdraw east. By then, 150,000 troops from the German 7th and 5th Panzer armies were surrounded. Though the retreat had been actually underway since the 14th of August, starting with the Panzer divisions. German infantry forces remained fighting off increasing Allied attacks, but without support they were forced to withdraw. With more and more troops converging on the narrow escape route out of Falaise Pocket, Allied aircraft and artillery were able to cause great destruction. Columns of panzers, field guns, trucks, and horse-drawn transport choked the roads and lanes. Few German vehicles could move, and the pocket became a smoking box of blazing transport, exploding ammunition, crying horses, and dead and wounded men. Royal Air Force Typhoons scourged the retreating Germans with rockets, bombs, and blazing machine guns. A British squadron leader reported, "Some of the German army did escape, of course, but the Typhoons made mincemeat of the German army at Falaise. You could smell Falaise from 6,000 feet in the cockpit. The decomposing corpses of horses and burning flesh. The carnage was terrible. There was no escape. Typhoons were already attacking in deadly swoops at the other end of the column, and within seconds the whole stretch of road was bursting and blazing under streams of rockets and cannon fire. Ammunition wagons exploded like multicolored volcanoes." Air Vice Marshal G.E. Johnson, one of the Royal Air Force's best-known heroes, called the Falaise pocket one of the greatest killing grounds of the war. Extensive though the slaughter was, the Germans did not allow themselves to be trapped completely. With more than a third of Hauser's 7th Army eluding the Allied trap, there was no mass surrender or capitulation. Many thousands of retreating troops escaped before the corridor was finally closed. The Panzerwaffe suffered its greatest disaster there since Kursk. At least 500 tanks and assault guns were destroyed. Several thousand vehicles were also left wrecked and burning. The air attacks were finally halted when the smoke from the successful attacks made it impossible to locate new targets. Despite the Allied pressure, thanks to the efforts of the 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich and the 9th SS Panzer Division Hohenstaufen, the Germans were still able to extract 100,000 troops from the pocket, though much in the way of equipment and weapons were lost. The last entrapped Germans surrendered on the 21st of August, and approximately 40,000 Germans were taken prisoner. The hard fighting had left another 10,000 German soldiers dead. The majority of the vehicles and tanks the Germans had inside the pocket had been destroyed. The divisions with the most panzers still operating, the 9th SS Panzer Division and the Panzerlehr Division, still had barely over a company of fighting vehicles each left. However, the Allies had not escaped lightly. The Canadians and Poles, who had borne the brunt of the German counterattacks, had also taken heavy casualties. Almost 1,500 for the Polish division and 5,500 for the Canadians.